2:18 here on The Shift, and there's a new report out, The State of Nursing in Ontario, a 2024 review. It's out from the Registered Practical Nurses Association of Ontario. Dianne Martin is CEO and joins us now to take a look at what this report has to say. Hi, Dianne.
Hi, Patty.
Just the title, The State of Nursing in Ontario. I know we've talked so much about it in the last few years, and particularly the last year. I can only imagine the things that you found. So bring us some of the findings in this report this year.
Yeah, we do this year, 1,300 practical nurses every year to see where the direction is going in terms of their experience within nursing. And this year, we found that there are some leveling off of some things, leveling off in some really bad places, but a couple factors not getting worse. The workload, for example, still really terrible. 84% said it is, they're still experiencing increases in their workload. That's down a couple percent from other years. Moral distress, mental health issues, just feeling terrible about your ability to do a really good job. Those are really the key things that we're seeing.
We've known for a long time, even before the pandemic, of a crisis in healthcare and a shortage of nurses. What are now the biggest problem? Is it nurses leaving for temp agencies? Is it nurses leaving for the new private clinics that are expanding? Where is that problem?
The problem's multi-level. First of all, 48% of the nurses who responded to the survey stated that they are thinking of leaving the profession in the next few years. That's a devastating number. And sometimes the number is a bit camouflaged by the reporting from the government. For example, the government will share with you that they brought in 17,000 new nurses last year, but that is not a net number, and they don't share the net number. I'm happy to. For practical nurses, we probably brought in about 7,000 new ones, but we have a net negative number of 414 from this time last year. So we're actually losing ground. And where they're going, yes, some are going to nursing agencies within Ontario, which is problematic in themselves, but others are leaving the profession altogether to move on to a profession that takes less of a toll.
Well, and I suppose that sounds right in that we're hearing so much about burnout, really. That's such a big problem, right?
Yeah, the experience that nurses are having is they go to school, they learn how to do this job well, and it's important to them to make that difference in patients' lives. They go into work in the morning, they drive home at night feeling like they failed, through no fault of their own, but feeling like they did not do what a nurse is supposed to do. And there's only so many times you can drive home from any job feeling like you failed that day until you just can't do it anymore.
That's an awful thing. Really, you launch a career of something you love, you want to do, and then to have that feeling when you're leaving work each day is got to be terrible.
Yeah, I think that there's things, though, that we can do. It's become a bit of an environment now that's going to be hard to turn around. But there are things that we can do to turn it around. And we actually have identified 5 things that are the most important steps. And one of them is wages. Wages have to reflect the job that they're doing. And in the case of practical nurses, wages aren't doing that very readily, although there's been some good improvements in the hospital sector in wages among unionized RPNs. But there are RPNs, probably half of RPNs throughout this province, who've not experienced any of that wage increase. We also think that there should be nurse-to-patient ratios. We should guarantee nurses an opportunity to do their job well. When they show up at work, they will have a workload that allows them to treat patients as all of us deserve to be treated. We believe that nursing leadership need to stop treating short staffing on their units as normal, And like, for example, I remember back in the days when it wasn't treated as normal, when I was in leadership in a hospital, being short-staffed on a unit one day, it was very rare. And I just put on a lab coat and said, who do you want me to bath for you? But now it's become so normalized, and I don't feel like leadership are recognizing the pressure that nurses are under. And finally, I think we need to, we want support for education so people can stay within the profession. They have a motivation to stay. That's underway. But I think we need to look at nursing agencies and look at the toll that those are taking financially on the province, but also in the workplaces where nurses might be working side by side with someone who's making a great deal more than them.
Yeah, I know, nurses personally that, I hear some of the hours that they work, beyond what they're scheduled. I can't believe sometimes what they have to do.
I was just speaking to my husband about this morning. I was calculating some nursing hours and wages. I like to be really informed of what's going on out there. And he said, well, that number of hours doesn't sound like a full-time job. And I said, no, they don't get paid for their lunches, and they don't get paid for certain parts of their day. And even though they're really rarely getting lunches anymore, what would have been their lunch break, they're now working for free. And there's significant implications to going home at the end of your shift if there's no one showing up there to replace you.
Wow. This is something. Who are you hoping will actually read this report and get the most out of it? The Minister of Health or beyond that?
So I think there's something in there for a lot of people. I think the Premier needs to understand that any steps like agencies towards privatization of nursing staff, that is causing a lot of distress. I think the Minister of Health needs to recognize that there are solutions out there to make sure that people get the right care. They just need to embrace them. And I think leadership within organizations, as hard as their job is, I think they need to recognize that they have a role to play in protecting their staff. I also want nurses to read it because I want them to know that we recognize what they're going through every day. And of course, you and I, as potential patients someday, we need to know this is going on. We need to ask all the right questions of any candidates during election time and vote accordingly.
Very true. Well, anything in particular, Dianne, from this report that you would really like to highlight, that you think that, you really would like to make sure that people understood about what's going on?
Yeah, I think the most important piece is that nurses talk to us in this report about witnessing a decrease in the quality of nursing care. That 91% of respondents said staffing shortages was negatively impacting patient care, and 93% had indicated that they had witnessed personally care being compromised. And I think that that's heartbreaking for nurses. That's frightening for those of us who could potentially be a patient someday. I also know that what I want people to note is that, my mom was a nurse. I'm a nurse. My daughter is a nurse. So much joy for my mom and I in this profession. I mean, every day at work, joy. And my daughter's not experiencing that. And so what I want to see return is the joy that nurses experience when they get to do this, what was once a really wonderful job.
And a job that we need more people in. We do need more nurses.
Yeah, absolutely. We need tens of thousands of new nurses in this province. And we want the government and others to work together with us by being authentic, by talking about the net numbers of new nurses, by looking at the negative number of practical nurses this time compared to last year, and panic along with us and help us to find solutions rather than pretending the numbers are better than they are.
Very good. Dianne, thanks so much for sharing this information with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
That's Dianne Martin, CEO of the Registered Practical Nurses Association of Ontario.